Bikers laughed at the teenage girl's jacket, then noticed the patch that shut them up. The afternoon sun was brutal over Route 9, beating down on the asphalt of the Rusty Spoke Diner parking lot like it had a personal grudge. A dozen motorcycles sat lined up in the lot, chromed-out Harleys, a couple of Indians, one beat-to-hell Sportster that had seen better decades. The men who owned them were inside, taking up the good booths, ordering coffee and pie and filling the place with road noise and engine talk. Maya Reyes pulled her bike into the far end of the lot. It wasn't much of a bike, a '94 Honda CB750 she'd bought for $800 from a retired mailman who couldn't ride anymore. She'd rebuilt the carburetor herself, replaced the clutch cable, repainted the tank a deep matte black with a thin gold pinstripe she'd hand-drawn with a brush she'd bought at a hobby shop. The bike ran clean and tight and she was proud of it, though she knew how it looked next to the machines lined up beside it. She was 17. She was alone. And she was wearing a jacket. It was her grandfather's jacket, a battered black leather riding jacket, the kind they stopped making right in the early 1980s. It was 2 sizes too big on her, and the sleeves came down past her wrists and the shoulders sat wide on her narrow frame. She'd rolled the cuffs twice and still they were loose. The leather had creases worn into it like a topographical map, soft in the places where her grandfather's arms had bent 10,000 times over 40 years of riding. It smelled faintly of oil and something older than that, something she couldn't name but didn't want to wash out. On the back, there was a patch. She didn't think about the patch anymore. It had always been there. It was part of the jacket the way the creases were part of the jacket, the way her grandfather had been part of her life until he wasn't. She wore it because it was his and because it fit her in every way that mattered, even when it didn't fit her shoulders. She pushed through the door of the Rusty Spoke and the bell above it announced her arrival to a room that immediately had opinions. There were maybe 15 people inside. A few truckers at the counter. A family in the back corner. 2 kids sharing a plate of fries. And the bikers, filling 3 booths along the window, sprawled wide the way men do when they've decided a space belongs to them. They were big men, most of them. Road-weathered. Vests over flannels, tattoos climbing necks and forearms, sunglasses pushed up into graying hair. The kind of men who had been riding longer than Maya had been alive. One of them noticed her first. A heavy-set man with a white beard and a red bandana nodded at his throat. He elbowed the man next to him and said something she couldn't hear, and then 2 of them were looking, and then all of them were, and the laughter came easy and low the way it does when a group has already decided something is funny before they've thought about whether it should be. "Nice jacket, kid," one of them called out. He had a voice built for road noise, loud even at conversational volume. "Your daddy let you borrow it." More laughter. Someone said something about Halloween. Someone else commented on the bike they'd watched her park through the window, the CB750, the mailman's old bike with its hand-painted tank, and the comment wasn't charitable. Maya didn't stop walking. She went to the counter and pulled out a stool and sat down and picked up the laminated menu even though she already knew she wanted coffee and a piece of whatever pie was freshest. She had ridden 90 miles that morning. She had another 60 ahead of her. She didn't need to prove anything to anybody in this room, and she knew that, and she held on to that knowledge the way her grandfather had taught her to hold on to the bars on a bad road. Steady, not tight, let the bike do the work. The waitress behind the counter was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a beaded chain and a name tag that said Darlene. She looked at Maya with an expression that was professionally neutral but contained, somewhere behind it, something like sympathy. "What can I get you, honey?" "Coffee, please. And whatever pie is freshest." "Peach is from this morning." "Perfect." Behind her, the commentary from the window booths continued, not loud enough to be a direct confrontation but loud enough to be heard, which was the point. The jacket was the main subject. A girl in a jacket that size. A jacket that old. The bike outside. Her age, which was obvious. One man speculated she'd bought the jacket at a thrift shop trying to look tough. Another agreed. They were not cruel exactly, just careless, which is sometimes worse. Darlene set the coffee down in front of Maya and leaned on the counter just slightly, the way a person does when they want to offer something without making a scene of it. "You okay?" "Yes'm." "You riding alone?" "Yes'm." Darlene looked at her for a moment, then nodded once, the way people nod when they've decided something about you and the something is good. Maya wrapped both hands around the coffee mug. Outside the window, she could see her bike at the end of the row, modest and clean. She thought about her grandfather. She thought about the way he used to say that a road doesn't care how loud your engine is, only whether you respect it. She thought about the last time she'd worn this jacket, which was the day of his funeral, standing in November rain over a hole in the ground in a cemetery in Albuquerque, 16 years old, the sleeves hanging past her hands. She turned slightly on the stool, not toward the bikers, just enough to reach her coffee more comfortably, just enough that the back of the jacket caught the light from the window. The laughter stopped. Not gradually. Not with one man nudging another the way the jokes had started. It stopped all at once, the way sound drops when someone cuts power to a speaker. The booth that had been the loudest went quiet first, and then the quiet spread to the others, and the room filled with a different kind of attention. The patch on the back of the jacket was not decorative. It was not the kind of thing a teenager picked up at a thrift shop to look the part. It was circular, maybe 5 inches across, embroidered in gold and black thread that had faded over decades into something richer than new thread ever looks. The design was specific and particular. The lettering around the edge was specific and particular. The insignia at the center was not something that got reproduced on costume jackets or sold at biker swap meets. It was the real thing. The kind of patch that means something to people who know what it means. The kind of patch that has a history attached to it. A history with weight and mileage and sacrifice stitched into every thread. The heavy-set man with the white beard, the one who had called out first, the one with the red bandana, had straightened in his booth. He was staring. His expression had changed completely, the casual amusement replaced by something more careful, more serious, more respectful. He stood up. He was a large man and he moved with the deliberate care of someone whose knees had bad memories, but he stood up and he walked the length of the diner to the counter and he stopped a respectful distance behind Maya and he said, in a voice stripped of everything that had been in it before, "Excuse me, miss." Maya turned around. He wasn't looking at her face. He was looking at the jacket. Or rather, he was looking at where the jacket had been, the back of it, the patch, already in his memory now, already doing whatever it was doing to whatever was inside him. Then he looked at her face. "Whose jacket is that?" "My grandfather's," Maya said. The man's jaw moved once before any words came. Around them, the other bikers had gone still. Darlene stood quietly behind the counter, watching. "What was his name?" the man asked. Maya told him. And something moved across the big man's face, something old and complicated, something that had been living in him for a long time in a quiet room and had just been asked to come out into the light. The man's name was Garrett. He didn't offer that right away. He stood there for another moment, just holding the name Maya had given him, turning it over the way you turn over something fragile to check if it's real. Then he pulled out the counter stool next to her and looked at it and looked at her, asking without asking. Maya nodded. He sat down heavy, the stool creaking under his weight, and he put both forearms on the counter and laced his fingers together and stared at them like they were going to tell him something. "Eddie Reyes," he said. Not a question. Just the name, out loud, in the air, like he needed to hear it exist in a room again. "Eduardo," Maya said. But everyone called him Eddie. Garrett nodded slowly. "I haven't said that name out loud in probably 6 years." He paused. "How long has he been gone?" 14 months. He absorbed that. Behind them, the other bikers had gone quiet in a way that was nothing like the quiet of indifference. 2 of them had shifted in their booths to face the counter. Nobody was pretending to look at menus. "How old are you?" Garrett asked. 17. He looked at the jacket again. The sleeves, rolled twice at the cuffs. The shoulders sitting wide on her. The leather so worn it had gone soft as cloth in the places that mattered. "He'd give it to you himself." "He left it to me," Maya said. "In his will. He had 3 kids and 7 grandkids and he left this jacket to me specifically." She said it without pride, or tried to. Some of it came through anyway. "We used to ride together on Sundays. Just the 2 of us. He started taking me out when I was 9. Taught me everything." Garrett was quiet for a moment. Darlene refilled Maya's coffee without being asked and set a cup down in front of Garrett without him asking either, the way good diner waitresses understand the room. "How'd you end up with that patch on there?" Garrett asked. "That's not something you just get." "I know," Maya said. "I looked it up after he died. Spent about 3 months researching it. I knew it was important, but I didn't know exactly what it meant until I started digging." She wrapped her hands around her mug. He never talked about it directly. He'd mention things sometimes when we were writing, little pieces, but he wasn't the kind of man who made a lot of speeches about himself. Garrett made a sound that was almost a laugh. No. He was not. He picked up the coffee Darlene had left him and drank some of it. He and I rode together for about 11 years. Before things changed. Before life did what life does. He set the mug down. He was the best rider I ever knew. And I've known a lot of riders. He used to say the road will humble you if you let it, Maya said. And you should let it. Garrett looked at her sideways and something shifted in his expression. He said that to me once. Exact words. We were out past Flagstaff, terrible crosswind, and I was pushing too hard trying to stay at pace with the group, and he came up alongside me at 60 miles an hour and said it right through the wind. He shook his head slowly. I thought about that for years afterward. The man from the window booth, the one who had made the comment about Halloween, had gotten up and was standing at a polite distance now, the way people do when they want to be part of something and are not sure they've earned the right yet. Garrett glanced at him and then looked back at Maya. That's Hector, Garrett said. He's got a mouth on him, but he's all right. Hector looked at Maya with an expression that had shed every trace of what it had carried 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry, he said, for what I said when you came in. I didn't know. You didn't need to know, Maya said. It shouldn't have happened either way. Hector took that. He nodded and took it and didn't argue with it, which told her something about him. Garrett watched the exchange and then turned back to his coffee. She's right, he said to nobody in particular, and that was the end of it. The peach pie arrived and Maya ate it slowly because it was good and because she'd earned it and because something about the room had changed and she didn't want to rush out of what the room had become. The bikers at the window booths had reorganized themselves somehow, quieter, more settled, the loud performance of themselves packed away for the moment. You ride that CB out there? Garrett asked. Since I was 15. Bought it myself. You rebuild it? Most of it. Carb, clutch, brake lines. The tank's original, but I repainted it. The pinstripe. Brushed by hand. He looked at her for a moment. Eddie taught you to do that? Some of it. The rest I learned from watching videos and making mistakes. She paused. A lot of mistakes. That's the only real way, Garrett said. That's what he said too. Garrett was quiet for a stretch. Outside, the light had shifted the way afternoon light does when it starts thinking about becoming evening, going from hard and white to something looser and more golden. It caught the chrome on the bikes in the lot and threw small bright shapes across the diner window. Where are you headed? He asked. Santa Fe. My aunt's place. I do this ride every summer. Me and my grandfather used to do it together, and after he died I decided I'd keep doing it. She looked out the window at her bike. He'd have had something to say about me stopping here, probably. What would he have said? She thought about it honestly. He'd have said the pie better be good. Garrett laughed. It was a real laugh, the kind that comes up unexpected from somewhere south of your chest. A couple of the other bikers laughed too, hearing it. It's pretty good pie, Garrett said. It's excellent pie, Maya confirmed. Darlene smiled behind the counter and pretended she hadn't heard. Garrett put his hand flat on the counter and looked at it and then looked at Maya. That patch, he said. What it stands for. You understand what your grandfather carried. I'm still learning it, she said honestly. I know the history. I know what the chapter meant and what those men did and what it cost some of them. But I think there are parts of it I won't fully understand for a long time. Maybe ever. That's the right answer, Garrett said. That's the honest answer. He was quiet for a moment. A lot of people would have worn that jacket like a costume. Like it was something to borrow. He looked at her directly. You didn't. I could tell from across the room, once I saw it. The way you carry it. You're not wearing it to be something. You're wearing it because it's his and he's still with you. Maya didn't say anything for a moment. She looked down at the pie plate, which was empty now, and the coffee mug, which was close. I talk to him sometimes when I'm riding, she said quietly. Out on the open stretches. When it's just me and the road. Does he answer? She thought about it. The road does, she said. Which was always kind of the same thing. Garrett sat with that. Around them the diner breathed its ordinary sounds. Coffee, the distant kitchen, the family in the back gathering their things to leave. Then Garrett reached into the inside pocket of his vest and took out something small and set it on the counter between them without explanation, without ceremony, without any of the words that would have made it smaller than it was. Maya looked at it. Her breath went very still.